Did you know that there are approximately 62.5 million millionaires worldwide? And contrary to what a lot of us believe, most of them were actually not born into wealth. In fact, 79% of those millionaires did not inherit anything. They made those millions by sticking to a few smart habits. I mean, take a look at Ronald Reed. This guy was a regular gas station attendant and janitor from Vermont, not too far from me. But while working those normal jobs, he was able to amass a whopping $8 million. In fact, most of the people from his town and that knew him didn't know that he had any money, and he was able to leave a lot of that wealth to a library and a hospital after his death. Even though I'm not quite a millionaire yet, I've been studying a bunch of different millionaires, especially the ones that didn't make it as an actor or an athlete or performer, but just made it through normal means that are actually attainable for everybody. And it turns out there are 4 simple habits that Ronald and a bunch of other millionaires use in order to achieve their success. Don't worry, this isn't just stuff from Google. It turns out most of the stuff that you read out there is just horrible, and that's why most Americans have no money. The first step is to understand cash flow. And cash flow is simply spending less than you earn. And the bigger the gap between that is, the faster you are going to retire. This is why your savings rate is super important, and what most people do with their savings rate is so wrong. For instance, the median savings for those under 35 was $3,240, which is very close to nothing when you look at the scale of being a millionaire. And while you think, yeah, that might just be those who are under 35, when it comes to 55 and older, the median is just $9,300 in savings, which again is very, very low. So it's pretty clear that what most Americans do does not work if you want to become a millionaire. But as I'm going to show in this video, it's actually possible to retire a millionaire with a very low income, just investing $35 a week. And I'm going to walk you through how. A simple rule that it turns out a lot of millionaires actually follow is the 50-30-20 rule. This is pretty simple, where 50% goes to your required expenses, your housing, transportation, food, all of that kind of stuff. 30% goes to discretionary expenses, which would be going out to dinner, vacations, clothing, all of the fun stuff. And then 20% goes towards saving and investing. But what most people do is they spend 80 to 90% of their income. So you have to ask, is that actually necessary? And do I value becoming a millionaire and having freedom later in my life more than just spending an insane amount of money right now? This is where it might be a good idea to kind of have like a self-audit of all your expenses and go through and just categorize them. I like to use an app like Rocket Money. It's super simple. You just plug all your credit cards in there, all your bank accounts. Not a sponsor. You can use any budgeting app. There's a bunch of them out there. And you just start with going through your expenses. And while this won't actually get you to being a millionaire, this is a great place to start, especially if you're on low income, because while earning more is important, and we'll talk about that in a sec, the first and fastest thing that you can do is to lower your expenses, cut out subscriptions, realize what is a want, what is a need, and really decide to start taking some control over your finances so that you don't have to be as stressed about money. This might mean cooking at home, making coffee at home, which is way better anyways, cutting out subscriptions that you don't use, stopping your impulse buying and spending on Amazon, all of that stuff that doesn't really make you any happier. And now with all that money that you're saving, it's important to actually put that money to work. So if you're looking to start investing, you can put it into a high interest savings account that you can save up money to either build up an emergency fund or start investing that money in something like real estate later on. Or if you want to start investing now into the stock market, you could just start putting it into things like a Roth IRA or 401k, or if you have a work that has a 401k match, you could do that and just automatically have that money going towards your future, because it's super important to start as soon as possible with all that. I personally just invest into low cost index funds because it is the most simple way to invest for me. It's gonna outperform you trying to pick the stocks. It's averaged over a 10% return, and for me, it's just the simplest way to do it.
If you guys want to start investing, I use Webull personally, and if you sign up for an account, you can get up to 12 free stocks when you open an funded account. There's a link below, check it out.
Now, before we get into some of the bigger steps that will lead to a lot more wealth, a few ways to kind of push your savings a lot further is to actually set a goal and write down that goal, because if you write down a goal, it becomes 42% more likely to happen. So pick a financial goal, whether that's $100 a week or $100 a month to start, and write that down so you know exactly what you're shooting for. Because when we look at being a millionaire, it's this huge thing that's so far away, but when we break it down into mathematical steps, it's actually pretty attainable. By the way, if you're enjoying this and getting any value, don't forget to subscribe. We're trying to get to 500,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I love everybody who's subscribed already. Thank you so much. So this is where step 2 comes in, of creating a wealthy mindset. Now, I don't mean the popular frou-frou thinking about money and you attract it, but there are some actual habits that will help you a lot. The first one is just gratitude. If you're grateful for everything that you have, for the place that you have something to watch this, that you can see it, that you can hear it, that you have a job, that you're not starving to death right now, then you realize you don't need need to spend money on a bunch of stuff because you're just a happier person and you're grateful for everything that you have. Think long term. We've been pretty much trained by society to think instant gratification. Anything you want, you can pretty much have show up at your door within a day or two. You can just put it on credit and pay for it in the future, but it's important to think about long-term effects of compound interest. You can either go into debt, which will destroy your finances, or you can start investing early, which will make the rest of your life incredibly easier. Education. Most people stop reading books after high school and college, but this should be just the very beginning. You can literally learn from some of the smartest people in finances in just a few hours. It costs like 20 bucks, and just one idea can completely change your life. Like for me, I learned about the idea of house hacking from one book, and that in turn over the course of my life will make me multiple millions of dollars, but it's already made me hundreds of thousands of dollars from one idea from one book. Surround yourself with people that inspire you. Sometimes we can't pick our family or even some of our friends, but it is important to be around people who want the best for you and don't want you to stay with them, because if you're out there grinding, making things happen, sacrificing for the future, and they're not doing it, they may start resenting you because it's showing a mirror to themselves of the things that they're not doing. So sometimes you actually may have to change your friend group, or you can just surround yourself with positive financial influences like watching YouTube videos, listening to podcasts, or reading books, which is kind of what I did to surround myself with some really smart people. It's just because I've consumed a lot of their content and I was really able to change my own mindset that way. Value time over money. See, wealthy people really value time more than money. You say, yeah, that's easy for them to say. They've got money. But it's important to, as we get into the next few steps of earning more money, to try to find things that don't just require your time indefinitely. Because otherwise, what most people do is as they get promotions, they just work more and more and more. They spend less of their time actually enjoying this money and more of it just working and working and working. So that's where the idea of trying to find different ways to do relatively passive income, or at least just jobs that don't require straight up 8 hours of work for 8 hours of money. Invest into yourself. Most people, when they're investing, will want to start investing as soon as possible. They'll open some investing app, they'll put 20 bucks in, and while that's actually a good way to learn about the markets and to practice, and that's totally fine, what's gonna make a bigger difference is actually investing into yourself. Right now, if you're earning $30,000 a year and you can invest $500 into learning new skills, reading books, taking a course, and in 6 months, that knowledge that you have will allow you to earn $40,000, that's gonna be the best investment you have ever made.
So that should be the first thing that you invest into. It's like into your mind, into your career. And that's why I've actually been recommending course careers to like a bunch of people that I know who are trying to raise their income. For just a couple $100, you can learn skills that can help you get from $40,000 a year to $80,000 a year, because it's all about what you know. And that's why I partnered with course careers, because I think they're a super valuable tool that can help a lot of people, and it's way quicker and way cheaper than like trying to go to college. There's links to them down below if you want to check them out.
Investing. Now this is where things really start to happen. There's a couple different ways you can go with investing. For me, my personal vehicle is real estate right now. I buy a property that is gonna cash flow. I will make money from that property every single month. And then once that property is paid off in 30 years, I'll be able to sell it or do whatever I want with it. So it's also building equity long-term, but not everybody wants to do that. So you can invest in starting a business, or the most common thing to do is to invest into the stock market with something like a Roth IRA. In fact, if you invest just $35 a week and earn between 10 and 12% on that money, which is relatively the average of the S&P 500, here is how much money you could have. In 20 years, you could retire with $115,000 to $150,000. In 30 years, you could retire with $343,000 to $530,000. And in 40 years, you could retire with $960,000 to $1.7 million just off $35 a week. That's why it's so important to start investing as soon as humanly possible, because the longer you're in this game, the more your money is going to work for you, the more it's going to multiply, and just the better off your retirement is going to be. And $35 a week isn't that much money. It's around 3% of the median salary in the US. So as long as you start early and only invest 3% of your income, you could still be a millionaire. But if you're starting later, just try to invest more. It's still definitely possible, and I'll see you next week.